Hey, what's up, guys? It's K Fillet'd. So yeah, let me just start off the bat. Spoilers for all of Deadpool and Wolverine. So if you don't want to hear no spoilers, you can go ahead and click off. Or if you do want to hear some spoilers, go ahead and listen, please. I need this. But this movie, I feel like there's no real way to really get in depth about it without spoiling a lot of stuff. So let me just say that right off the bat. For the last maybe week and a half, I've just been obsessed with this movie. I've been trying to find every clip I can find on YouTube and Twitter, and there are already memes about it. Memes about that one scene with Gambit in the middle. And if you're still watching and you haven't seen the movie and you don't care about spoilers, no, this isn't like that time I made a video about the Snyderverse where I was like, yeah, and then Nightwing comes in the Snyder cut, and then Alfred he pisses his pants and everything. Like, no, this is for real. But this movie is crazy. It was very clearly written during the writer's strike because there are so many lapses in judgment and oversights. Logistically, just a lot of stuff that doesn't make sense. Like Wolverine being the anchor being of Deadpool's world, but he's still alive at the point in time in which Deadpool is alive. So why not just have Wolverine from that point in time do it? Or the Cassandra Nova mental ability thing. They said the only person who's free from her like telepathic abilities is Juggernaut, but they put the helmet on her and it just stops it. I thought, me personally, I thought it stopped stuff from going in, but I guess it works both ways. And then she also can just like blow people up, and then she never does it again. Like, it's just a lot of oversights and stuff like that. But overall, I was just in love with this movie. I am enamored by it. It is so weird and so crazy and so like unapologetically like Deadpool. Like, no other character besides Deadpool could do this except for like Freakazoid or someone. Just like some random character. But I feel like Deadpool works best for this kind of meta story. Initially, about a day or two after I saw the film, I started writing this little paper about it just for funsies. And then the day after, in the coming week after, everybody, I saw this July 24th, or wait, no, 25th. Let me see this. Yeah, the 25th. So the night of Thursday, the day before opening day. My friend had some Cinemark tickets, so we saw it opening night. Opening night. And then the next day, everybody else saw Deadpool. And then everybody else started spewing out reviews over the next week. Now it's kind of at a standstill. But I wrote this whole paper, not a whole paper, but a couple pages about how Deadpool was like a movie in a way, which I'll explain in depth. But I just had a lot of these points, and then the Cosmonaut Variety Hour, he dropped a video that he had a lot of the same points as me, and I really liked the video. I was like, dang. And then Mr. Sunday Movies, James and Meso or whatever. I always get their names mixed up. But they dropped that video. They happened to say the exact phrase that it was like one of those scary movie things, and I was like, damn. And then Godzilla Mendoza, he dropped a video. He had a lot of the same points, and I was like, oh my god. But I feel like I'd feel terrible if I didn't at least just say my piece on the movie. Those are all great videos. I'll try and link them. I won't try. I will just put them in the description below so you can watch them after you watch this one, since this is gonna quite clearly be the best one, obviously. But I always think that was such a weird phrase, do or do not, there is no try. Because in the end, Yoda just does not, like someone said, he just doesn't decide to fight Palpatine. He just gets whooped, and then he immediately is like, oh, I'm done, and then leaves and never comes back. But yeah, here are just some thoughts. I titled this one, why Deadpool and Wolverine is the first cinematic universe movie and like the second coming of the movie, you know. So let me just get into it. So like, yeah, back in the day, the early 2000s, there were a lot of like, I mean, a lot of my fan base says it's like in the 18 to 24 range or whatever. So a lot of people, you know, have seen it. But for anyone who isn't privy to it, let me just explain that in the early 2000s, there were a lot of parody movies that were made. Like, there have always been parodies made, you know, I'm Gonna Get You, Sucker, the Monty Python movies, Airplane, the Naked Gun, stuff like that. But there were a bunch of parody films that we just called movies, or at least I did and a couple other people did, called movies throughout the early 2000s, in which basically there were parody movies, but the thing that separated those parody movies from the ones before, Monty Python, you know, Naked Gun, Austin Powers even, was that they sucked. They were terrible a lot of the time. Not just because of the production quality, but also because of the like datedness to it. It's like shameless, embarrassingly topical references that age like milk after a year. I was gonna say 2 years. Yeah, most of the time just after a year. You know, Scary Movie. Scary Movie is probably the only good one. Scary Movie, Date Movie, Epic Movie, Meet the Spartans, Vampires Suck, Super Fast, The Hungover Games, The Starving Games, and Movie 43. And a lot of these movies just relied on lowbrow humor and super dated references. Like a lot of movies have references in them. Like Airplane, it was like, wait, you're Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, and it's like the actual Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. But what a movie would do is like, oh my gosh, you're Britney Spears, and then have an actress who kind of sort of looks like Britney Spears, but then she has like a heroin needle in her arm, and she has missing teeth and, you know, hair pulled out and stuff. So not only is it like a really topical reference, but it's also like, what's the, I guess, like offensively, unoffensively offensive. You know, like they're trying to be offensive so bad that they're not at all. And then by not being offensive, it's like, ugh, this is so gross. You know, just like the fact that they failed so badly makes it like, ugh. It's like a lot of those like comedians now who are like, yeah, I'm gonna say it. The woke mob doesn't want me to say it, but I'm gonna say it. Guys, please put your shoes on when you're in an airplane. And then they just keep saying really like sanded down, non-edgy jokes. But that's what those movies were like. A lot of them rely on, you know, lowbrow humor and surface level observational humor of the films they're making fun of. But in 2008, a movie known as Superhero Movie came out, which was like a parody of the early 2000s superhero films with Drake Bell as the main character. He's like a Peter Parker, Bruce Wayne parody named Rick Riker. And the movie's horrible. It's garbage. It's not very good. Um, like not only because it was making fun of all these movies the same year, like a month later, Iron Man came out, and then Dark Knight, or however it went. Like those two movies came out the same year. They're like, man, our superhero movie's so lame. But I also really don't like it because it kind of, maybe, I'm not saying it did, but maybe it led to Drake Bell becoming Spider-Man and replacing Josh Keaton, who was my Spider-Man. So I'm like, I was like, ooh, I really don't like it now. But, but I feel like the main reason this movie was a failure financially and critically, was because it broke like this unspoken rule of a lot of movies, was it was like genuine, and you're not really supposed to be genuine, because with a lot of, you know, satirical stuff, it's much easier to be I don't know why my voice is like wavering almost. I don't know what's up. I'm just, it's a lot right now, man. There's like this hurricane about to hit. It's crazy. But yeah, we're in Florida. There's like this unspoken rule of these movies where you're not supposed to be genuine, because if you're genuine, then that means you're open to make the same mistakes that you're making fun of other people for. Like, it's kind of like how online nobody really wants to, if you're the funny guy, having to break the persona and be like, okay guys, here's what I really want to do, it kind of makes you vulnerable for clowning on, because of just who you are. And that's basically what this movie did, because halfway through the movie it switches to being like an actual superhero movie, and I was watching it and I was like, whoa, wait a minute, because there were just less wacky stupid jokes like normal, like before in the same movie, but it just switched to being like an actual superhero movie with actual romantic beats and actual attempted comedic beats and stuff like that. And then every now and then there'd be like a fart or something, but it would just be basically a Spider-Man movie reskinned. And I was like, what is happening? And it was super jarring because like 40 minutes earlier, it had Professor X driving around on a toilet, and he's like, yo, that's Barry Bonds over there. He has superpowers from all the steroids. Like, it's just, again, really stupid topical stuff. But it opened itself up, and I feel fell flat on its face in both ways. It sucked as a parody and as an actual genuine superhero movie. So yeah, so now let me try and tie this back into Deadpool. A while ago there was a comic run launched called The Immortal Thor by Al Ewing. He also wrote The Immortal Hulk, obviously, but Immortal Hulk was such a good run, dude. Oh my god, like I loved it. I literally I was reading it on Hoopla. That's, at least for me, I don't know if it exists anywhere else. A lot of the other people I know, I'm like, yo, I read on Hoopla, and they're like, what? It's Hoopla. I was like, it's Hoopla. You know, you don't have Hoopla, but it's like a thing tied to my public library, so I get to like check out books electronically. This isn't paid or whatever. But I read Immortal Hulk Volume 10, and I literally teared up reading it because it was just so beautiful. And I was reading it, I was like, man, this is Hulk. Why am I so like, I was literally like in tears, and it was so like powerful. I just bought it. So it's over there now on my bookshelf. But Immortal Thor, I need to read that. But from what I've seen, it seems like Dario Agger, who's a villain, he's like a Minotaur dude, given powers by like Loki or something. I can't even remember. I don't know. There's so much happening always. But it looks like he tries to fight Thor by sort of parodying him in a comic. And it's like a very tongue-in-cheek, very like self-aware comic that's like, man, isn't this so wacky? You know, I'm fighting aliens and I'm a god with a hammer. And it's supposed to is very thinly veiled criticism of the MCU. It's even called Roxxon Presents Thor, Marvel Presents, you know, whatever. And it's meant to be like super mass appealing and sort of free them from criticism, because Agar says a brand that takes itself seriously is mocked. A brand that mocks itself has free reign, a free pass into every consumer's head. Now I feel like it's the time to bring up Deadpool for no particular reason. Deadpool is the spiritual successor of the movie. It's like a mainly comical film, and it's meant to sort of poke fun at all the different superhero movies while still being a superhero movie. That's why I feel people don't really like Deadpool sometimes, because he just winkingly like looks at the camera like Peter Griffin, and he's like, hey, we're about to do a cliche, and then he does the cliche. So it kind of, it's not really subversive if you're like, look at this, we're about to just be lazy, and then you are lazy. It's weird sometimes. Like Deadpool 2, he was like, big CGI fight coming up, and then a big CGI fight happens. It's man, I'm sorry, just blanked out. I feel like Mr. Sunday Movie said it best, and it, I mean, they're two different dudes. I feel bad. Meso, it was like, he said the first movie felt different from Deadpool 2 and Deadpool and Wolverine because of how it was budgeted. It had like $60 million, which is like nothing at all, really, for a superhero film of that caliber. Which is why there are only 3, main characters, just Colossus, Negasonic Teenage Warhead, and Deadpool. And both of those are like, Colossus is like B tier, Negasonic D tier at best. I don't know. And it's like, there's a video by it was a shit show who showed that it was talked about the film in production literally having to go page by page and remove every single thing that costs too much, and just like scraped everything from the movie to keep it in budget. So, no shield in it, no this, no that. He had a whole gun full of bags, and then he forgets the bag of, what did I say? A gun full of bags, a bag full of guns, and then forgets it on the cab. So he just has to use his 2 guns and then switches to swords halfway to save money. So they were literally skimming through everything. But now, because these movies have budget, it is just like they're able to kind of waste it. I feel is weird. It's like the more money they have, the worse it looks. Kind of is strange. It's like inversely proportional. Because the first one was on a tight budget and was directed by Tim Miller, who is great at doing a lot of good things with a small budget. Most notably, one of my favorite works from him, at least, the DC Universe Online trailer. It is so good, it'll make you forget that the game is horrible. It's so bad, but that trailer is so cool and so beautiful to look at. But the Deadpool films, I feel, are just coated in a layer of irony and almost like dashes of, being apologetic. It's a weird mix. It's like within these movies, somehow there's room for sincerity, and somehow, even weirder, it works. Like Deadpool in the first movie has to come to terms with accepting himself, and then the second one is like coming to terms with, loss and opening up and everything. And it works. It really works somehow. Because I don't know. It's like people always are like, man, because when Deadpool was made popular by all those guys, Ryan Reynolds, Reese and Wernick, Tim Miller, David Leitch, and now Sean Levy, with the help of Zeb Wells. That's how you know this was a writer's strike movie, when they go like, all right, let's talk to the comic writer. I guess we'll talk to them now. Gross. Like, ugh. Like, the mom from Tangled having to talk to the two villains, the Stabbington brothers, just like, ugh. I guess I'll mingle with you, Just, I guess we'll stoop to the comic levels, the comic writer level. Gross. But people think that when making these movies, they left out like the sad clown aspect, and I feel like that couldn't be any more wrong. Like, cause it's like really sincere, and really Deadpool has like this self-deprecating thing about him, but he wants to improve. So I feel like that's what makes it different from just a normal like goofball, and it's like this weird mix of sincerity and irony, crudeness, and awareness of the larger Marvel universe, and not to mention actually making money, that showed me Deadpool wasn't just like a comedy movie. It was like this evolution, or mutation, if you will, of the movie. It's not just a superhero movie, 2008. It's a cinematic universe movie. And I feel like that's so bizarre. It's like the first of its kind. Like, in case you don't know, people take superhero movie stuff really, really seriously, like dead serious. Like, I don't know if you've ever gone on Twitter, but people are ready to kill people over these movies. They are like, bro, what did you just say? Did you just say the No Way Home suit sucks? Dude, I'll kill you. I swear to God, dude. I'll drop your address right now. I'll have all my boys run up there and shoot you in the head. Like, they are really ready to crash out and kill each other over like Deadpool and Wolverine and and these and what Johnny Storm and all these people in this movie. But like, a lot of people were mad that Wolverine came back. Some people, again, this is Twitter. Twitter is the place you go to. You don't seek valid criticism. You seek validation. You seek on Twitter people to either get mad and make fun of people, or just chill out over stuff. There's literally no in between. You don't just go on Twitter. Almost nobody goes like, it was okay. They either go, this was the worst movie ever, and it, tied my mother up and shot her in the head, or this is the best movie ever, and it cured my daughter's, leukemia and gave me $1 million, just because of how good it was. Like, there's no middle ground. But people were mad about it on Twitter and, on Instagram, Reddit, whatever, YouTube. That the movie Logan from 2017 might have been sullied, because Logan was supposed to be the send-off for Wolverine. But I mean, I put, in case you don't see me, I'm doing air quotes, because it's, comic movies. Like Daisy Ridley said in that one movie, no one's ever really gone. Like, for some reason, the word respect kept floating up they're like, this is so disrespectful. This is so, lacking in respect for the character and his journey and his evolution and his arc. And it's like, obviously Wolverine, like Logan, he wouldn't come back. Maybe, a younger. We assumed eventually they just get, a younger guy, more huge and more jacked man, someone, a different dude, like Henry Cavill, who was in Deadpool and Wolverine, who is most definitely not going to be in the FCU now. But the word respect just kept floating up. And like, everyone was kind of like, is this going to be Logan's Logan? Is he going to be a different dude? Is this going to mess with the consequences of Logan? Or like, change it and everything. And even I, for a time, was like, man, what's it gonna do? What's it gonna do? I need to know. I was excited to know how I was gonna deal with that. And Deadpool and Wolverine starts with him digging up the remains of Wolverine, because he was like, well, obviously Wolverine is alive, right? Which is what a lot of people thought. They're like, okay, so you're just gonna bring back Wolverine from the dead, old Logan, and they're gonna go on a journey or whatever. And so he digs up the body, and he's like, obviously he's alive, he can regenerate. And he digs up his body, and he's like, okay, time for the super healing to work. But he's like for real dead, and he's like a bearded, rotten metal skeleton. And Deadpool sticks his hand in his mouth and starts puppeting him around, literally. He knocks over like the little X grave marker, and then TVA agents come out. And despite Deadpool being like armed to the teeth with all these guns and knives and swords and everything that he has, he literally like starts disassembling the bones off of Logan and throwing them at the agents and stabbing them and crushing them and everything like that, and just really messing them up. And it's so weird. Like, it's intercut with him dancing to Bye Bye Bye. My friend Brandon, who I saw the movie with, I saw it with a few friends. My friend Brandon, he's a big NSYNC fan. So he was like, and we just looked at each other, and I was like, yes, good. I'm happy for you, Brandon. Like, a lot of NSYNC fans needed this. They're like, please, because Justin Timberlake hasn't been a good boy. So I'm like, all they've had really for a while is Trolls 3 and now Deadpool 3. So yeah, sorry. But and then he dances to NSYNC and starts disassembling the corpse and using the bones as weapons since they're indestructible. And then like tapes his the claws to his arms, and then he's like, yeah, let's go. And then the title drops. And it's like, now me, a lifelong Marvel fan up until recently. I mean, yeah, still a Marvel shill even. That I'm not, for a while I was. I feel I should have had like this sense of anger or dread at Deadpool, like literally, taking apart his corpse and using it as a weapon or as a tool to just get away while literally dancing on his grave. Man, I sounded like Jason Momoa. Jason Momoa always has like this weird voice crack every now and then. I don't know what it is and why it always happens in like every movie he's in, but his voice like cracks, and then he's like always talking and then goes back to normal. It's weird. He does it a lot, and no one ever seems to know, like, reference it or anything. It's so weird. But yeah, I feel like I should have been like, no, he's desecrating his body and his grave and everything. But I felt like this zenness, which is weird to say, because it was the most engaged I'd ever been in like an MCU opening in years. Um, and this is probably like the best Marvel movie opening in a while, maybe ever. Like, I feel like I should have been mad, because they're defiling his grave, and there's very tactless grace in it by confirming Logan is dead, and they're not gonna redo that, but literally taking his bones apart and then using them. But it was like it all clicked. Like, I was like, oh, this isn't real. Like, obviously it's real in the movie, and maybe it's even real in Logan's universe, but it's like not real. Like, it might sound like cynical or like really stupidly obvious, but it made me realize that this movie in particular, but all the Deadpool movies really were all kind of confirming and attacking this notion Marvel had, which they talk about throughout the whole film, that it's only canon if you want it to be. It's weird. Like, Marvel has this tendency to address only their wins and then sweep all the losses underneath the rug. What's good is canon, and what's bad isn't canon. What makes money matters, and what doesn't matter. Kevin Feige literally said that the MCU Disney Plus Marvel shows were the first time their TV series have interlinked with the MCU, and just kind of ignored the 7-year-long run of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., whose like entire tenure had to jolt jarringly between all these concepts to fit in with the Marvel movies. From what I saw, like, one season it's Hydra, next season this, next season Inhumans, next season Sif's here, all this stuff. And it's like, Daredevil's is Daredevil canon? Yes, obviously it's canon because people like it. And then, is Inhumans canon? Probably not, because people didn't like it. And now they changed Miss Marvel, who's an Inhuman, into a mutant upon, acquiring the X-Men. Oh yeah, and speaking of which acquisitions, oh my gosh, these movies have made me and millions of other people like literally watch and care and recollect all this knowledge on IP ownership. The blueprint is by me, and mergers and acquisitions, for some reason, is bizarre almost. Like, Marvel has steadily been recollecting all the IP and characters they once sold off to ward their inevitable bankruptcy, like Thanos recollecting all the Infinity Stones. My cousin, after I posted I was going to see the movie, she said like she was going to see the movie that upcoming weekend. And my first instinct wasn't to tell her like, hey, watch, Blade, watch Fantastic Four, watch X-Men, Days of Future Past or whatever. It was to look up the details of the Disney Fox merger just on instinct. And that's because Marvel has kind of enabled this weird, almost sort of parasocial relationship with people, where many diehard fans who couldn't even care less about stocks and mergers and acquisitions and the IP ownership, the blueprint is by me, Mr. Get Off, I get off at my feet, to pay close attention to the inner machinations of Marvel. And Deadpool and Wolverine is like the fallout from that. This is what makes it like a cinematic universe movie. You get me? Like, it's I'm trying my best to explain it. Okay. Like, at the end of Deadpool 2, the movie Deadpool and Wolverine, they reveal that at the end of Deadpool 2, when he goes back and saves Peter and some members of X-Force, they really don't explain if like where Domino's at, where Terry Crews is at, all those people. But when he went back and fixed stuff, he went to Earth 616, the MCU's main timeline. I mean, it's always like it's the main timeline in the comics, but that's a different That's the original 616, but then this one is also 616. Even though Mysterio had kind of just made up that it was 616, but it happens to actually, it's I don't know. So he goes to the main MCU and talks to Happy Hogan, and Deadpool is like, "Hey, can I join the Avengers?" And they're like, he's like, "Maybe. You know what experience do you have?" And he's like, "Well, you know, I was in the military for a while, and I started X-Force, but then everybody died." And they're like, maybe not." And so they tell him, Happy's like, "Maybe not, man, but thanks for coming." And then Deadpool has his birthday, and then he meets Tom from Succession. And instead of playing like a spineless executive, plays a spineless TVA agent. And his name is Mr. Paradox. And Mr. Paradox says, "Deadpool, you know, you can come into the main universe and be relevant here." And he's like, "All right." And then Deadpool gets suited up and booted up and like groped repeatedly. I thought that was a hilarious joke. But, I mean, it sounds horrible saying it, but it was so funny because it's in the trailer. But they repeat it like 8 times. He like slaps and then zips him up and then gropes and then slaps and then puts a knife in and then slaps again and then unzips and then re-zips it. And then he walks out. He's like, "You know, you're, Taylor's a predator, right?" It's like, "But this suit is sick." Yeah. I was like, "What?" But after doing that, he finds out his universe and his family is going to die because the quote anchor being has died, and that the anchor being is Wolverine. And this causes Deadpool to spiral because he thinks like that if he brings back another Wolverine, then he can keep his universe intact. And let me stop you right there. Let me stop me right there. Okay, you can stop me right there. Okay, thank you. You get what I mean, right? Like, Deadpool alludes to wanting to meet the other guy, but he's like, no, he doesn't do cameos. So at this point, it will be 2018. So Iron Man would be the big guy, but he can't afford, you know. Iron Man doesn't do the recruiting. At first, I thought it was Kevin Feige, but I was like, no, that's a bit too meta. But just settles for Happy Hogan. Happy Hogan is played by Jon Favreau, who directed Iron Man, which kickstarted the MCU. And then he wants to join the Avengers, which is Marvel, and he's in a universe that is slowly petering off and dying after its main character dies. You know, like, I was just going to say, like, the X-Men universe, which slowly petered off and died, but also kind of like the MCU, to an extent, I'd say. But yeah, kind of like the MCU. The illusions only seem to get stronger with time as they enter the void, in which all things pruned go. I think they showed a different part of it in the first season of Loki. Haven't seen Loki season 2. Maybe I should. It has Ki Hwai Kwan. He seems like a cool dude. He seems like a nice guy. But there's a giant 20th Century Fox logo. And, like, obviously. But even as Mr. Paradox is recruiting him, he's like, "You can join this universe. It's very cinematic, am I?" You know. And like, the whole void is filled with all these different forgotten characters like Azazel from X-Men First Class and Psylocke and Tyler Mane's Sabretooth, Toad played by Ray Park again, shout out Ray Park, Darth Maul, X-Men Last Stand Juggernaut specifically, Lady Deathstrike, and Pyro. And then Deadpool and Wolverine work with a team comprised of, big spoilers here, Jennifer Garner Elektra, Wesley Snipes Blade, Daphne Keane as Laura again from X-23 from Logan, and most surprisingly, So really surprisingly, I literally screamed like, no way. I screamed extremely loud. I was like, what? I was like, no way. No way. I just couldn't believe it. When Blade came out, Channing Tatum comes out as Gambit, who was the one in development hell for years. Even at one point, he was like, I think I've been here all my life, man. He was like, I've been here since I was a boy. Since he just never got off the ground. And like a few of my friends, me and two other, so when I saw the movie, I saw it with 4 other friends. 2 of my friends and me were like diehard Marvel fans, so we knew everything. We knew a lot of the every reference, and everything like that. And then one of my friends, he saw like a few of them but didn't really keep track. And the last one, my friend Brandon, he had never seen like a single X-Men movie, single Deadpool, and didn't really watch any Marvel movies at all. So me and my 2 other Marvel watching friends were like, yes, Channing Tatum, yeah. And my friend Brandon, he wasn't in tune with the cape shit, so he looked at me and he was like, am I stupid or is that Channing Tatum? And like, that's what I mean. This is exactly what I mean. Because it's like any other time I'd most likely be rolling my eyes at like the lame, soulless cameos and everything like that. But this just didn't really feel like that. I mean, obviously there are a couple points where I just like cringed. Like I literally cringed when Daphne Keane put on her like sunglasses, and then they really like zoom in on that and focus on that. Like it's one of those applause moments. I'm like, dude, I'm not applauding for that. Like, just let her put them on. But there's some eye rollers, but for the most part it's all right. And it's not even because I really like a lot of these characters. Like, a lot of them I don't. A lot of them I was really surprised. Like, oh wow, I'm supposed to flip my lid. Like, oh my god, they have Callisto from X-Men Last Stand. Like, no. Oh my god, they have Spike Guy from X-Men 3. Wow. The guy who has the spikes on his hands, on his face and body, who can only kill you if he hugs you. Like, be for real. But it's just the fact that Marvel, has been letting a lot of these things peter off and be forgotten and hated on. And it's like, that's a bit weird. It's really weird. The movie's like, that's a bit weird, isn't it? From that SNL sketch. I really like that sketch. Kings of Catchphrase Comedy 3. And it's like in case you don't know, Kevin Feige, he's the president of Marvel Studios, the film division of Marvel. And in case you don't know, again, Kevin Feige was an associate producer on like damn near every single Marvel movie since 2000. Like, he watched all of these movies release and saw what sank and saw what float, and devised a near perfect formula for creating and releasing these movies. And after a while, I just got sick of the formula. Like, every movie felt like I was doing homework. Like, okay, class, you watch Ant-Man 1 and Ant-Man 2? Like, yes. Okay, did you watch all 4 Avengers movies? Yes. Did you watch Captain America? Yes. Okay, did you watch Loki? No, I didn't watch Loki. Okay, then you can't watch Ant-Man 3. That's so weird. That's really weird. But Deadpool and Wolverine, it feels like extra credit. You know what I mean? Like, you don't really have to watch this to understand a future Marvel, because almost none of this is going to tie back in, obviously. But you can if you want to. It's like, you don't have to sit through the mountain-like highs and then like the Mariana Trench lows of the pre-MCU movies. But you can, it's like, you don't have to watch and listen to all these droll mergers and hear them talk about Fox, being acquired by Marvel and DC, mistreating Henry Cavill and everything. But you can, and if you just happen to know all that stuff and you happen to watch it, just like how if you do a class and you happen to do extra credit, you just get rewarded just because of it. And like, it's bizarre. That's why I really, really like this movie, and why I also think it's really strange too. Because just like with the Gambit thing, you have to know so much prior knowledge, so much stuff about how Marvel works and how everything's formulated, and the fact that Channing Tatum had a Gambit movie in hell for yeah, basically in development hell forever. And it's not even like Godzilla Mendoza said in his video, like, it's not really a funny, stupid, like, oh dude, this would have been so bad, like, the canceled like, what was it, the original plan for the Green Lantern movie, where it's like a fat, like Jack Black or something is supposed to be Green Lantern, and it doesn't even sound like one of these terrible movies. Like, if X-Men Origins Wolverine got canceled, and then you're like, oh, what's the movie supposed to be like? And then you find out, like, oh, Deadpool has swords in his arms and shoots lasers and teleports, but not with the teleport belt, he just has it. Oh, that's kind of weird. That's stupid. Or like that dude Cut Short. I love Cut Short. He does all those Cut Short, and now Bullets and Blockbusters does more of what Cut Short used to do, where he talked about all the different movies that got canceled over the years. And all of them, it's like, well, that sounds kind of cool. And then he says one thing, and then you're like, oh, that's why it got canceled. Superman, the original Superman Batman movie, I was like, okay, this sounds kind of cool. And then it's like, oh, Joker gets murdered by Batman, and then it's brought back as a clone, and then uses a poison bee to kill his wife, Batman's wife, who's also a clone. And then it's like, what? A Wonder Woman movie, and it's like, oh, okay, that sounds cool. But then you find out it's written by Joss Whedon, and you're like, oh, maybe it'll work. Then you find out the movie's from Steve Trevor's point of view, her boyfriend. And then you don't even really get to see Wonder Woman, and then he starts insulting Wonder Woman and calls it. You're like, what? You're like, oh, that's why it got canceled. But Gambit was like a passion project, and so much prior knowledge, so much stupid stuff. Even if you watch all the other movies, you still won't know what that means. Same thing with, like, it's like with Multiverse of Madness. Like, you can watch Inhumans and Captain Marvel and all the X-Men movies and all the Doctor Strange's appearances in the Marvel movies and everything. And then John Krasinski as Mr. Fantastic shows up, and you're like, well, why is Jim from The Office in here? And it's like, well, he was a fan cast. Same thing with the Henry Cavill Wolverine thing. It's like, this is what makes it such a weird movie, like the cinematic universe movie. You don't need to know, because with a superhero movie, you need to know, like, for superhero movie, for example, what do you need to know to watch superhero movie? You need to, well, maybe watch Drake and Josh to know who Drake Bell is. You need to know who Kevin Hart is, because he's in there, or at least to know, like, care enough to watch it, because it sucks. But then you need to know what X-Men is, Batman Begins, and Spider-Man 1. And just some random topical stuff. And that's about it. And Deadpool, it basically works on the same formula. You need to know about random topical stuff. But it's weird now because the way things were pop culture wise back then and the way things are now, everything is so divided into like these subgroups and subcategories that something that's a huge event for one community is just not even a blip on the radar for another community. You know, like you can listen and go on Twitter, and then all these people are like, "Oh my God, you heard about Ice Spice and Central C and his girlfriend Mads or whatever, and Ice Spice and this and that." And I was like, "Who? What? Ice Spice, the rapper? What's she? Central C? What's she? I don't know." Like, I just listen to them. It's sometimes, but listen to Ice Spice less and less. I was like, okay. But it's just like now everything's sort of divided. Like, but it makes it work somehow, and it's like rather than focusing mainly on pop culture, celebrities, and scandals and stuff like that, it does do that. There's a part where Deadpool is like, "Keep my country's name out your mouth." Stupid line. And just like general other stuff, but like, and it trades out the pop culture aspect and like substitutes in the cinematic universe aspect, like knowing all this stuff about, you know, the DC universe ending and Henry Cavill's problems, you know, Henry Cavill being kind of jerked around by DC and led on, and then not even being able to be Superman anymore because the original DC extended universe ended. Now James Gunn has his own thing going on, and The Rock basically tanking DC. Like, they had so many issues beforehand, but The Rock ended up kind of putting the final nail in the coffin with Black Adam, and that you have to, like, that's what you need to know in order to watch this. And I think that's what makes it so weirdly, like, fascinating. There's a part where Deadpool literally goes like, "The hierarchy of power in the Marvel universe is about to change because of me." And I was like, oh, you know, like, not even like offended. I laughed. I was just like, this is different. It's so weird. Maybe I'm reading too much into this, but I just feel like it is such a, like, breath of fresh air. Like, it goes kind of by the standard MCU movie formula. There are lots of, like, the movie isn't as, you know, cinematically breathtaking as the first one, or, you know, as crazy as the second one, or heartbreaking like Logan, and it doesn't really tackle all the meta narrative themes about, you know, having a place and belonging like Spider-Verse does, or even like Logan does. Logan is literally about a corporation taking his likeness by force and then killing him with it and stripping him of all personality to make him the perfect asset so they can use him forever and make it, you know, a perfect soldier, a perfect universe in his image. But Deadpool and Wolverine is still like a great thought experiment. And what I love the most about it is it feels like a send-off to all those weird movies. There's a part at the end in the credits where they just show all of the X-Men behind the scenes movies, and they start playing this, like, I can't remember, like Green Day or something. And it's a beautiful, like, a touching moment. And I thought it was going to be a joke. Like, they're going to be like, "Psych, you thought we liked those garbage movies." But they do. They go like, "We're sorry." Like, Marvel has really let these movies flop and just go under the radar and be forgotten to time forever. and we're not going to do that. And so they give all of these movies their flowers, all of them. Even Fant Four Stick, dog, that movie is so boring. Oh my goodness. But they give Blade, Blade Trinity, Elektra, Daredevil, the X-Men movies, Logan, Fant Four Stick, just all of these movies, even the bad ones, and even especially the bad ones and the good ones, and just say, yo, without these movies, we wouldn't be here. Without these movies, the MCU wouldn't be here. You need to stop this whole revisionism thing and pretending like these movies were just all bad. And yeah, like it's really nice. I was like, thank you. Like, because there's a part where Blade, they're driving in a car to like the final battle, and they close the gate, and then Blade jumps out with the RPG. I think someone said it was the RPG from like that one Terminator movie. One Punisher movie where he shot the dude doing the backflip off the building. I'm really not sure if that's true or not, but I wouldn't put it past them. But he pulls out a RPG and he's like, there's only one blade and there's only gonna be one blade. And Deadpool looks at the camera, and there's like a bunch of ways that can be interpreted. It's like, is he looking at the camera because he knows Blade and all the rest of them are about to die for nothing? Essentially, is he looking at the camera because Blade is about to be maybe replaced by Mahershala Ali? Or is he looking at the camera because Blade might not be replaced? Because this movie's been in development hell for years. And they have literally been switching between all these different topics and ideas. And every single time I see Blade pop up, it's like, extra, new Blade movie coming out. Blade writer decides to add vampires and vampire huntings into the movie, brings production to a halt for another 4 months. And it's like, why wasn't that in the beginning, in there from the start, But this movie is so fun. It's like really, really high budget fan fiction. A while ago, I'm looking at like these notes basically for this movie, these notes, and it was such a fun movie. And I keep saying, and for a while I was like, yeah, I think I'm done with the MCU. But now, post Deadpool and Wolverine, like a lot of stuff is looking good. I can't even lie. Like, from what I've seen, there's this new Fantastic Four movie coming out. Pedro Pascal, Vanessa Kirby, dude from The Bear, and dude from Stranger Things. I can't remember all their names. I'm sorry, but that looks like it's gonna be really fun and really interesting, and set in a different universe. RDJ is gonna be Doctor Doom. I have no idea how this is going to work, or if Dr. Doom's just going to get murdered after like an hour and then the real Dr. Doom's going to step in. Or, whatever. But it looks interesting, but I'm just so, like, I might have to break my promise, maybe. My utterly meaningless promise. but it looks like they're starting to change up stuff, maybe, because in Deadpool and Wolverine, they literally say like, "Hey, can we stop with all the multiverse stuff now?" Deadpool looks to the Deadpool core, like a whole group made of Deadpools, and he's like, "Can we stop with the multiverse stuff?" And I was like, "Yeah, but it's this whole movie felt like a fever dream, and it felt less like having your homework graded and doing all this stuff and studying for the final exam and being told like, all right, good job, see ya. but and more so just like acknowledging that without a lot of these movies, we wouldn't have Marvel now. Literally, Kevin Feige, as I said earlier, watched these movies rise and flop and was like, yo, take this from this movie, take this from this movie, take this type of humor from. Even as the MCU was progressing, he was like, oh, Guardians of the Galaxy was funny. Take that and put it in here. Take this humor, put it in here. Take this type of action, put it in here. Take this writer, have them do everything. And take these directors, the Russo brothers, have them do 2 Captain America movies, 2 Avengers movies, and then the next 2 Avengers movies, maybe. They're originally going to have Destin Daniel Cretton do it. But now he's not. I don't know what's going on. But that's how Kevin Feige works. But I love this movie. It was so fun. It was so funny. There's like a whole bit. Like, not every joke is like hilarious. But sometimes they're just like, But when they're funny, they are funny. Like, there's some jokes where I literally couldn't breathe. There was one how he was like, Gambit, you ready? He's like, man, I've been ready since I shot out my daddy's dick. He was laying all them hot buttery nuts up in my mama. And I was like, what? And the Henry Cavill Wolverine, that made me go crazy. I thought that was hilarious. And I didn't even notice it, but as he's walking the Wolverine, he does like the shoulder pop, like arm reload thing from Mission Impossible 6. And I'm just like, that's hilarious. And the Chris Evans, Johnny Storm post-credit scene where he sounds like Gohan off of Dragon Ball Z Abridged. Like, he is just saying this horrible stuff. And it's like, thank you, Marvel, because this was a great experience. And I feel like you did something Marvel would normally do. And so I'm just hoping, because this is the first time ever where they don't build up to, where they don't build up to anything else. The end credits, they don't say like, get ready for this. You know, Marvel is gonna have Deadpool and Wolverine return in the next one. They don't do any of that, but it just feels like a nice send off, because Deadpool and Wolverine kind of represent something more as characters than they do. They represent something more as icons than they do as characters. So it was nice seeing that be acknowledged. Even the icons of, you know, the past MCU, because it's like Godzilla Mendoza said in his video, which was amazing and made me sad because I was like, dang. But it was like, it acknowledges that just because something did bad doesn't mean that it doesn't deserve recognition. Like, obviously all of these movies affected people enough to where they were willing to sit and watch them for 20 years, despite the fact that some of these movies were horrible. Like me, you know. But and some of these characters will, you know, aren't the most interesting or the most cool or the most well written, in depth, but you like them. And just because they aren't, you know, the best written character, the coolest character, the most notable character, it pays homage to all those little guys, to the Pyros and the Chris Evans, Johnny Storms, and, you know, the Tyler Mane Saber and Sabretooth and Lady Deathstrike and Toad and Callisto and the 1-inch Spike guy from X-Men 3 who can only kill you by hugging you, who was also in Inhumans, which also didn't do good. But yeah, and I hope this isn't Marvel's last time getting weird or meta or whatever, and I hope they don't just continue to stagnate or say, or even worse, say Deadpool and Wolverine did this, so let's only do this. But am I done with Marvel? Maybe, but I'm excited to see some of the stuff they have coming up. I'm excited to see what they do with Sentry, because I'm not really not interested, but I mean, not really familiar with the character. I saw they were gonna have Steven Yeun play him, which is really weird. I think it would be hilarious if Steven Yeun played the normal version of Sentry, and then when he turns into the super version, it's just the dude who plays Paul from Beef, like his brother. So that would be great. But he got replaced, so I think that dude's going to be alright. But I'm really excited for Fantastic Four, and I'm really intrigued to see what even Doctor Strange is, but I mean Doctor Doom is. But yeah, this movie was so good and was a very unique experience. So those were just some thoughts and a review kind of, and a retrospective. Yeah, that's about it. Bye.